And good morning. I am happy to welcome all my fellow board members and call the June 12th, 2018 AM School Board meeting to order. Whether you are in attendance here this morning or watching from another location, my colleagues and I are pleased that you took the time to join us. We do appreciate and applaud your commitment to partnering with us in support of our schools, our students, our staff, and our community. The board and Brevard Public Schools staff remain fully committed to doing our best to ensure excellence in Brevard Public Schools. We do know that our success depends heavily on an engaged and committed community to work alongside us and help us continually improve. Thank you for being active participants in this process. Pam, roll call, please.
Thank you. Mrs. Belford?
Present.
Mr. Craig?
Present.
Mrs. Deskovich?
Present.
Mr. Susan?
Here.
And Mr. Ziegler?
Here. Please join us in a moment of silence as we mourn the loss of two members of our BPS family, Kurt Barnhart, a North Area bus driver, and Debbie Forster, a cafeteria manager from Space Coast Junior Senior High. Thank you. This morning, Rachel Horst from Government and Community Relations will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Rachel.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
This time, I'd like to offer my fellow board members and Dr. Blackburn the opportunity to recognize staff, students, or community members. Mr. Ziegler? Ms. Belford? Ms. Deskovich?
I want to, this morning, Dr. Tolks invited me back into HR. And to my surprise, in the big open area, there were, 12 of our library assistants. I'm getting that wrong. Media assistants. Did I get that right? Media assistants in there. We've hired them over the summer. They're 10-month employees, and we've hired them over the summer to go through our 2,000 files. So when I first was elected, Dr. Tolks took me back there and showed me a room of every employee we've ever had in Brevard Public Schools in a paper file, some of them this thick, not automated, in a room, thousands and thousands and thousands of files. And so that was concerning. For example, if we needed to look somebody up, you'd had to go through the paper file and things could get overlooked. You can't search for keywords to see if you've got some problem employees. It was really concerning. And so she has taken the challenge to get all of those files automated. We asked her to, a few months ago, we asked her to estimate about how long that was going to take with our current staff. And she said with each of them doing 2 hours less a day of their job, working at automating these files, it would take 5 years, which kind of was unacceptable. And so she got creative and put together a plan and hired in our 10-month media assistants over the summer. And they were in there, lined up at tables this morning, going through those files, automating them, and it was a great sight and a move towards better security for our district. And so a shout out to Dr. Tolks. And give me a second, because I think there might be another name or two of someone we want to congratulate for pulling that together. To Miss Marinette and her direct reports who have worked on putting that together. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Susan?
So last night, we had the opportunity to listen to Dr. Blackburn speak in front of the League of Cities. And one of the things that Dr. Blackburn touched on, which really hit me, was that this whole security plan that we've put together took an entire village, which meant all of the other city commissioners and mayors to put across the finish line to come together. He also talked about how in other counties and other districts, they're still fighting over what that looks like and how we were successfully able to pull this across. So what I wanted to do is not only say thanks for Dr. Blackburn for putting that out there, but then also for Dr. Mullins, who this security project was a lot of his work, going to each one of those chiefs, going to each one of the, inside the cities, going to each one of the mayors, city councilmen to work out a plan that we could all agree to and move across. And a lot of credit goes to Dr. Mullins for doing that, and thank you, Dr. Blackburn, for putting that out there. I also want to say there's some great things inside this agenda besides all the individuals that are here that are moving up and moving around. There's a updated security plan, and for the individuals over there in red, we have a updated mental health plan that we're putting across the table with a lot of really good things inside of it. I think you guys should take a look at that. And I wouldn't be remiss if I would forget that the CO for the aviation hangar is official at O'Galley High School. So in August, the Economic Development Council and a couple of organizations are going to have a big event there. So that's going to be a big deal. And then also, in the same school, O'Galley had a draft pick in the first round along with Merritt Island. So for the first time in Brevard County history, and the only time in the entire country this year, and I don't know going back, we have 2 kids in the first round for baseball. That is, for Major League Baseball, to have 2 kids in the first round is absolutely phenomenal. And to say that our athletic programs around here are absolutely phenomenal, between Coco winning state titles and everybody else playing for the finals, and then we have baseball. It's just, we do a great job here in Brevard holistically. So that's all. Thank you.
Dr. Blackburn?
Thank you, Mr. Craig. I want to give I'm going to borrow a phrase from Mr. Susan, a shout out to all of the new principals that we appointed at the last board meeting. Had a chance to spend about a half a day with them and several members of the cabinet, along with Leading and Learning on May 24th. I enjoyed that time. I want to thank you to Cocoa Beach Chamber, Palm Bay Chamber, and Space Coast League of Cities for inviting me out various times over the last couple of weeks. It makes a big difference to have such welcoming community leaders here. I want to say thank you to the Central Brevard NAACP for the invitation and award at the June 1st Freedom Fund banquet, and really enjoyed accompanying many men from the community, from Palm Bay, Mayor Capote, to Titusville Chief of Police Lau, and several other leaders in the community. Spent much of the morning and afternoon on Saturday, June 2nd at the Harry T. Moore Center, talking to kids about not only overcoming failure, but how to seek failure as growth opportunities. And that was just an awesome event. Lastly, I want to discuss our food and nutrition division. So the Florida Department of Agriculture, Division of Food, Nutrition, and Wellness conducted a school meals administrative review of the National Lunch Program and School Breakfast Program for Brevard County School Board on February 5 through the 8th, 2018. Documentary evidence was examined, personnel were interviewed, menus were evaluated, and meal services were observed. Based on the School Meals Administrative Review report, there were 0 audit findings for Brevard Public Schools. So thank you and congratulations to our Food and Nutrition Services Department. And that's it.
Oh, Ms. Descovich.
I forgot this one last month, and I almost forgot it again this month, and I can't believe it because it is so exciting to me, and I'm so proud of our kids. So we at Brevard County sent 8 students to the International Science Fair, and that is a big deal. 8 just from Brevard County. That's not the state of Florida, it's just our county. And within that, of those 8 students, we had one that received a very large scholarship, one that took a 4th place, one that took a 2nd place, and we had a 1st place winner from West Shore, Muhammad Abdullah. He took 1st place in the world in his category for science fair. He received, Dr. Sullivan, I hope I get this right, an invitation to Stockholm for the Nobel Prize award ceremony, and he's being hailed a pretty smart kid, and he's right here from one of our public schools. So we're pretty excited about that. Thanks, John.
That's awesome. Fantastic. And just to reiterate, congratulations to the Merritt Island High School baseball team making it all the way to the finals this year. Just amazing. Not an easy task, and just a great representation. Mr. Susan mentioned the security plan, and certainly Dr. Mullins was leading that, but Major Walters deserves a huge amount of credit as well, as he is our head of security, I guess he's sort of on loan from the Sheriff's Department. He's one of our own. We love having him in the building. He is proactive in security and has brought consistency and continuity to our security plan for the entire district. And so thank you, Andy, for all you're doing and continue to do as we continue to move forward with our evolving security plan. And that brings us to the adoption of the agenda. Dr. Blackburn.
Mr. Craig and members of the board, on today's agenda, we have administrative staff recommendations, 1 recognition, 20 consent items, 4 action items, and 3 information items. You also have the yellow supplemental agenda, which are changes made to the agenda since being released to the public. Item A7 on administrative staff recommendations has been revised. Item F22 on 2018-2019 school resource officers, and item G30 on finalist selection for superintendent are additions. Consent items on Pineapple Cove Charter School and Odyssey Charter School contracts were pulled.
Thank you, Dr. Thank you, Dr. Blackburn. What are the wishes of the board?
Move to approve.
Moved by Ms. Belford, seconded by Ms. Deskovich. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, please vote. And the motion passes 5-0. Hopefully everybody has a cup of coffee and is ready for a lot of celebration. So Dr. Blackburn, over to you.
Yes, Mr. Craig, there are
Administrative staff recommendations, sorry. Go ahead.
There are 24 persons on this agenda item for the board to consider.
What are the wishes of the board?
Move to approve.
Second.
Moved by Mr. Susan, seconded by Ms. Belford. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, please vote. Motion passes 5-0. Now, Dr. Blackburn.
You know, as the board knows, I get a chance to appoint and announce a lot of people here in the district. There's one position in this school system that brings back a lot of emotion, and it's the assistant principal position. If not for the years I spent as an assistant principal, I think I would still have a few hair follicles left. It wasn't that funny. So that job is really, really, really tough. So hats off to all the men and women that will be taking it on. At this time, I would like to recognize those administrative staff persons here with us this morning. Please join me in congratulating Mallory Williams on her reclassification and transfer from the position of Teacher Technology Integrator in Educational Technology to the position of 10-month Assistant Principal at Westside Elementary.
So I just want to say thank you, and that I'm so excited for the opportunity that Westside has provided, and Darlene Rogers, the principal, who's on vacation right now. But thank you to her secretary, Kelly, for being here and representing the school, past administrators that got me here, Terry Moeller, Roseanne Bennett, that dealt with me through my master's program, and my current manager, Pam Olick, in technology. So thank you, and I'm excited for a new year.
Congratulations also goes out to Courtney Schifrin on her reclassification and transfer from the position of teacher at Tropical Elementary to the position of 10-month assistant principal at newly opened South Lake Elementary School.
Dr. Blackburn, school board members, thank you for your confidence in this administrative position. First, I want to thank my former principal, Mrs. Allison, who I'm not sure is here, Ms. Castillo, and Ms. Sorokin for their mentoring and guidance, to my parents for their support, to my friends for supporting me along the way, and to my new principal, Ms. Brockwell, who's taken me in. And I look forward to working with the South Lake family.
Ms. Schifrin, as an administrator, do you plan on dressing up in weird-looking outfits as what? No? Okay. Got it. Congratulations to, I'm going to mispronounce the name. Congratulations to Kathy Garres. Was that correct? Garres. Kathy Garres on her reclassification and transfer from the position of teacher at Cocoa High to the position of 10-month assistant principal at Saturn Elementary.
First, I'd like to say thank you to those who have their trust in me and giving me this position, Dr. Blackburn and the school board and Ms. Rutherford and the Saturn team for really seeing something in me and giving me this opportunity, and for all of those in my past who've really helped to get me here and build me up, and Mr. Wilson and the COCO administration team and Dr. Sullivan, who I wouldn't be here without. Like, you know, you got a piece of my heart. So my family, my friends, my siblings, like everybody has really supported me and got me here, and thank you.
Ms. Klein is really working today. Congratulations to Rick Dillon on his reclassification and transfer from the position of teacher at Cambridge Elementary to the position of 10-month assistant principal at Longleaf Elementary School.
Good morning, Dr. Blackburn, school board members. Thank you for this opportunity. I'm happy to be here this morning, and I'm beyond excited to begin my new journey with Dr. Bias and my new Longleaf family. So thank you for providing me with that opportunity. I'd also like to thank my family and my friends for their continued support and encouragement as I embrace this new venture. And finally, I wouldn't be here today without my Cambridge family and the support, guidance, and mentorship from Dr. Wendy Smith and Dr. Chana Spear. I appreciate everything you both have done to help me prepare for this position. Thank you.
Mr. Ziegler, he's wearing a bow tie, just like you, sir.
Yeah, I was going to make a motion to increase his salary because of that.
Also, we'd like congratulations extended to William Tracy on his reclassification and transfer from the position of teacher at Sable Elementary to the position of 10-month assistant principal at Anderson Elementary School.
Thank you, Dr. Blackburn and members of the school board. I'd like to also thank my wife and my 4 kids who are here with me today. You guys have absolutely brought me one of the greatest joys a man, a father, and a husband could ever know. Thank you so much. I'd like to thank my new principal, Denise Johnson, for welcoming me to Anderson Elementary. I look forward to coming up and serving you and the family there. Thank you, Stephanie Hall, who's been my principal, both and assistant principal for the last 14 years. Thank you for all your mentorship, leadership, and inspiration. Thank you so much.
Now we move on to congratulate Courtney Lundy on her reclassification and transfer from the position of 10-month assistant principal at Vieira High to the position of 12-month assistant principal at Satellite High.
Thank you to the school board. Thank you to the school board. I do want to start by thanking my husband, because last time I was here, I almost forgot to thank him. So thank you for your support. Thank you to Chris Moore and Sherry Bowman for their advice and knowledge. Thank you to my family, my parents, my in-laws, to the VHS staff. I was there for 8 years and they became family. The admin team at Vieira, we learn so much from each other and we have fun while doing it. To Sylvia Majeskovit, Sarah Robinson, and Tim Rooney, I have to give a special thanks to, because no matter what position I was in, coaching, teaching, administration, he has a lot of wisdom to give, and I cherish that wisdom. To Mike Alba, it's been 8 years, and he has been a big part of my growth through that 8 years. He is the definition of a multiplier. And then to Bobby Pruitt in Satellite High School for the belief in me. I look forward to giving back to the school that gave so much to me.
Congratulations to Todd Rassman on his reclassification and transfer from the position of 10-month assistant principal at Mel High to the position of 12-month assistant principal at Titusville High School.
Thank you, Dr. Blackburn and the school board. I'd like to thank Principal Neith Jones for accepting me as her new assistant principal. I'd like to thank Chad Kirk, her principal, and also Principal Sherry Tomlinson for helping me get here. I have a few other people to thank. A good friend of mine, Lauren Kirschensteiner, who I worked with as an instructional coach, and all of the other people that have helped me get here today. And I'd also like to thank my family for their support and for the time that they have to give up for us to be assistant principals. Thank you.
Congratulations to Laura Barna on her reclassification and transfer from the position of 10-month assistant principal at Central Middle School to the position of 12-month assistant principal at Delora Middle.
Thank you. Thank you to the board. Dr. Blackburn, thank you. First and foremost, obviously, I want to thank my husband who's here for all of his support and encouragement. He's always behind me 100%. Want to thank, obviously, my Central family for helping me these last 3 years and getting me to the place where I am today. Just so you know, Delora holds a very special place in my heart. I actually worked there. I started my career there, and I was there for 8 years. So I can honestly say that the teachers, the students, the community is just very near and dear to my heart. So thank you to Jeremy LeBron and the whole Delora committee for giving me this opportunity, and I look forward to being a Scotty again. Thank you.
Congratulations to Kevin Ryan on his reclassification and transfer from the position of 10-month assistant principal at Satellite High to the position of 12-month assistant principal at Cocoa Beach Junior-Senior High School.
Dr. Blackburn, members of the board, I'm very excited to be here this morning. I'm flanked by my wonderful wife and 2 children. I have my father-in-law here and my dad and my mom here as well with me, so I'm very excited to have them share in this moment with me. I also want to thank my satellite friends and staff, my principal, Mr. Elliott, who gave me so many opportunities to be where I am today, Ms. Hare, who guided me and gave me a lot of inspiration and opportunity, to Chris Moore and Sherry Bowman for believing in me and their mentorship, and finally to my new principal at Cocoa Beach, who I look forward to spending some time with, Dr. Carol Green. Thank you all.
And also congratulations to Lori Benjamin on her reclassification and transfer from the position of 12-month assistant principal at Cocoa High School to the position of 12-month assistant principal at Central Middle School.
Thank you, Dr. Blackburn, and thank you to the board. I'm very, very excited. I want to thank my Cocoa High School family and Mr. Wilson for the past 3 years, and I couldn't be amiss to thank Dr. Sullivan. She was at one time my professor as well, and also a very big mentor. I wanted to thank my new principal at Central, Mr. Shear. He's actually on vacation right now, but he's sending his wishes, and I'm just blessed that the committee chose me for this opportunity, and I'm looking forward to making some wonderful forward movements with achievement for students at Central and building a community. Thank you.
That young man standing up in the back, Mr. Theodore, has threatened board members that he plans on turning into a professional golf player in October or September of 18. We're going to miss him dearly. There's a young lady who works for us who has worked really, really hard. Doesn't make as much headlines simply because of the phenomenal job that she has been doing overseeing our sales tax initiative for the last 3 years. I guarantee you, if not for her efforts, we would have been reading about the sales tax initiative a lot more. We are ahead of schedule, under budget, and things are just going great. In addition to her work with boundaries and helping to maintain facilities, and there's so much I can say about Sue Han. I learned a couple of days ago that you pronounce her last name Han. I've been calling her Han for the last 3. Me too, right?
Han Solo.
Who knew, right? Who knew? But I was recently corrected. So last, we congratulate Ms. Sue Han on her reclassification and transfer from the position of Director of Planning and Project Management to the position of Interim Assistant Superintendent of Facilities Services.
Thank you, Dr. Blackburn and members of the school board. I really, really appreciate this opportunity, and want to also thank Mr. Theodore, who's been a wonderful mentor, and other members of the BPS team who have been so kind to help me become a strong member of the team as well. I'm so proud to work here. I love to see your mission as serving every student with excellence, because we do that so well here. And I've got to talk a little bit about the folks that I've worked with, including my team in planning and project management, the maintenance team, the permitting team, environmental health, energy, ET, our folks in finance and purchasing. Dr. Blackburn, you talked so well about what we've done with the sales surtax, but it wouldn't be possible without all those folks who really have made it happen over the last 3 years. It's been a team effort, and I truly appreciate the team that I have had to work with and the team that I'll be working with in the future. And so congratulations to all the new APs. I hope to work with all of you as time goes on. And I also just want to thank my husband, who's been a wonderful supporter throughout my career. And I look forward to many years here. Thank you so much.
Dr. Blackburn and school board members, with my apologies, we do have one more assistant principal to be recognized. And congratulations to Kelly Bombriant, 10-month assistant principal at Bayside, soon to be 12-month assistant principal at Stone Magnet Middle.
Thank you very much, Dr. Blackburn and the board, and Dr. Sullivan for giving me this opportunity. I'd like to thank my family for always making sure that I have a hot meal on a nice long 15-hour day, or a football game, or whatever it is that I'm staying after school for. Chris Moore, who helped me begin my career in administration 2 years ago. Lena Weibelt for always standing beside me and believing in me and supporting any crazy decision that I may have had. And of course, Misty Bland for taking me on as a new Stone Gopher. I'm very excited for this new opportunity. Thank you.
That's it?
Can I just say something really quick, John?
Please, go ahead.
Congratulations to you all. I think it's super exciting time to see so many new, excited people coming into positions of leadership. But I just want to point out for Satellite High that your school board member for District 3, your principal, and your new AP are all alumni of Satellite High. And I think that that's keeping it small and in the community. It's pretty exciting for all of us. Thank you.
Special.
Dr. Blackburn, will you please tell us about the recognition item?
Well, if we're done celebrating Scorps, yes, I will go on. Mr. Craig. Item B8 is to recognize the Office of Purchasing and Warehouse Services for receiving the award for excellence in public procurement for 2018. Dr. Mark Mullins, Chief Operating Officer, will make the presentation. Dr. Mullins.
Good morning. This morning I'm excited to announce that the Office of Purchasing and Warehouse Services has earned the Florida Association of Public Procurement Officials Award of Excellence in Public Procurement for 2018. The program places emphasis on continuous process improvement and outstanding purchasing practices. Earning this award serves as confirmation of an agency's quality procurement processes and demonstration of the commitment and contributions to the public purchasing profession. This prestigious award is earned only by those organizations that demonstrate excellence by obtaining a high score on standardized criteria measuring innovation, organization, professionalism, source selection, productivity, e-procurement, process improvements, and leadership attributes of the procurement organization. The trophy that you see here was presented on Thursday, May 24th at the FAPO's 51st Annual Conference and Trade Show in Orlando. Just as a point of interest, this serves as the 6th consecutive year that our school district has won this award, and we are only one of 16 agencies in Florida and one of 4 school districts in Florida to have received this award. My sincere appreciation goes out to the purchasing and warehouse team for an exceptional job. Well done. And at this time, I'd like to go through the list of team members that are here to celebrate this award with us. Of course, our former director, Mr. Ed Parker, purchasing manager Dawn Richer, senior buyers Will Hensman and Janice Ellis, and buyers Nick Kanjar, Sean Haynes, Heidi Dotson, Candy Cottle, our purchasing specialist Jennifer Wells, administrative secretary April Terry, our warehouse supervisor Sandy Kimple, and surplus specialist Kyle Gotti. To take advantage of photo opportunity, Chairman Mr. Craig and Dr. Blackburn, if you'd come down and join us for a photo op. And congratulations to our purchasing team.
Yeah. Bye-bye. Isn't that cool? The principal, the new AP, all
It is.
side by side.
Look at our guys all by themselves now.
Do-do-do.
You guys are all by yourself now. Go hang out with them. Give you a red shirt.
We will give everybody just a couple of seconds here to clear out.
It's funny. Like, I was over there communicating to them some of the issues, and it's like, it's like I'm trying to tell them, hey, let's work together on issues, and they're looking at me like I'm trying to undermine them somehow. And I'm like, no, we get, like, this is crazy. We need to work. Yeah, I understand. It's understandable.
Really? Why? We do underhand things.
No, we haven't actually, and I've taken some underhanded gut
Okay,
punches by
it seems
them.
like we've calmed down a little bit. Congratulations to everybody. We are now at public comments. Those school board policies 0169.1 limits to 30 minutes, the portion of the meeting during which the public is invited to participate and provide public comment. Policy further provides that this time limit may be extended by a vote of the board. That is not necessary today. We have 3 speakers signed up this morning. We will go to the next portion, which is each speaker is limited to 3 minutes. We have a clock in front of me, this high-speed little 3-minute countdown clock that'll help you keep track of your time. When your time is over, you'll be asked to stop and allow the next speaker his or her turn. Always keep in mind that reasonable decorum is expected at all times, and your statement should be directed to the board chairman. The chairman may interrupt, warn, or terminate a participant's statement when the time is up, personally directed, abusive, obscene, or irrelevant. Should an individual not observe proper etiquette, the chairman may request that the individual leave the meeting. Let's all encourage an environment appropriate for our children who may be present or who are watching from home. And let's begin with our first 3 speakers, our only speakers. Anthony Colucci, followed by Dan Bennett and Connie Rook.
Well, I'm sorry all those folks didn't stick around to hear me, but hey. My name is Anthony Colucci. I'm the incoming president of the Brevard Federation of Teachers. At the last couple of meetings, there's been some talk amongst this board about the treatment of employees. Thank you to those of you who are willing to engage in that difficult conversation. From what I've seen, most of the time, there is a positive and fair outcome for teachers who are faced with issues. I will say that frequently, the journey to get to that outcome is arduous when it doesn't need to be. Oftentimes, the right thing to do is glaring, but we have to let bureaucracy exhaust itself before the right thing happens. I'm extremely proud of the work our union does to ensure equity and justice. That work makes Brevard better for all employees. A major issue seems to be that occasionally administrators choose to be unnecessarily harsh with teachers when they could have chosen to be compassionate and understanding. For instance, if a teacher has an issue, does it really require a summary of conference? Or can the administrator just have a good old-fashioned meeting in their office? I often wonder if that administrator had an issue, how would he or she want to be treated by the supervisor who had to handle it? If the administrator does need to write a summary of conference, does it really need to be written like the colonists' grievances against King George III? Or does it really need to be written like the start of a Twitter feud? Can't it just be a general and brief description of the policy that was reviewed? And before a letter of reprimand is written, has the administrator truly considered if that is the only choice? Do they realize the potential consequences such a letter has on a teacher? Under our new AC reappointment language, if a teacher gets a reprimand, they're ineligible for automatic reappointment. Under newly created HR policy, if a teacher gets a reprimand, they are ineligible to be hired as an administrator. Once again, if that administrator had an issue, how would they want it handled? Would they want to be dealt with some grace and understanding? I really believe that this board doesn't want to see teachers lose their eligibility for automatic reappointment or to go into administration because of one-time issues. Should a teacher lose automatic reappointment for 2 years because she showed frustration with a chronically disruptive student? Should a teacher not be able to be an administrator after 15 exemplary years because he did not handle an issue in a textbook fashion? This board should intervene with employees being dealt harshly. This board should make sure all employees, whether custodian, teacher, or superintendent, are treated with compassion and understanding when they make human mistakes. Thank you.
Thank you. Dan Bennett, County Rep.
Good morning, members of the board and Dr. Blackburn. If Anthony introduces himself as the incoming president of BFT, I guess we can piece together what my role is. This is probably one of the last times I'll be speaking to you as president of BFT. I've been coming up to this podium for, I think, about 15 years now. 10 years as a BFT officer, and of course before that I had my eyes on you, had to start making trouble ahead of time. And I was thinking the other day about a conversation that we had in the BFT office. It was probably about 5 or 6 years ago. It was actually when a couple of you took a very serious interest in our schools. You've been watching for a long time as well. Topic was coming up of closing schools, and we had a building full of people, and we looked around and we asked ourselves, has the board ever gone against the recommendation of our superintendent? I remember that being a serious question. It was probably about 10 years I've been watching the board, and we had some officers at BFT had been watching even longer. And we could not seriously ever say yes, that the board had gone against a recommendation of the superintendent. And of course, we union folks watch that, right? Because sometimes we end up at impasse. And I remember one impasse in particular, we had a $12 million health care charge being passed along to employees. And we said, don't do it, you have the money, but the board went with the superintendent anyway, and the end of the year there was a $15 million surplus. And we, oh man, they just had to follow the superintendent blindly. Well, the answer at the time was no, the board has never gone against the superintendent, and yet out of that vote was the one and only time that I've ever seen the board go against the superintendent. It was on the topic of closing schools. The board voted to close South Lake, and then Gardendale, and then Clear Lake, And Andy, you were the swing vote. We all waited. We held our breath to see what you do with Sea Park, and by a 3-2 vote, you kept Sea Park open. And that, in my 15 years of coming up here, is the only time I can think that the board has not supported the superintendent. You have two issues in front of you right now. If you're not going to support the superintendent, I would ask you, don't start that habit right now. One of them, Dr. Blackburn, thank you. I think you're right on two issues. You've gone to the press and you've said you're against arming employees, except for the security folks you're going to hire. But the actual people who interact with the children, you've gone on record as saying you don't recommend that as a good idea. It's on the table right now. Leave it on the table. Let it sit on the table. Please do not go against the superintendent on that. And another important issue is the idea of going out to millage. Bring the case to the voters. Let the voters decide if they're willing to invest more in employees and security for children. I've never seen this board go against superintendent except for that one time. Please don't start now. Do security right, and let's get some raises for teachers. Thank you all. Have a nice day.
Connie Rook.
Good morning. Good morning and welcome back. It's been a busy month and I hope you are enjoying your summer break. My name is Connie Rook and I'm here with the Melbourne chapter of Moms Demand Action. We all know that gun violence is an American problem. It can and does happen every day in every town, and it affects all of us, and we all need to be part of the solution. So, just this week, I ran the numbers this morning. In the past week, since the 5th of June, 115 people in America have been shot and killed. This morning, we got the news that a man and 4 children were killed in Orlando, Florida, just an hour away from us. On Friday, the 8th of June, we learned that an investigation by the Office of Inspector General revealed that in February 2016, the Florida Department of Agriculture stopped using the results from the FBI crime database called the National Instant Criminal Background Check System that ensures that applicants who want to carry a gun do not have a disqualifying history in their states. During that time, the state saw an unprecedented spike in applications for concealed weapons permits. There were 134,000 requests for permits in 2015. The next month broke a record for 245,000 applications, and it was topped again in 2017 when a department received 275,000 applications. Allow me to restate this. For more than a year, the state of Florida failed to review national background checks on tens of thousands of applications for concealed weapons permits. Also on Friday, just a few days ago, Pasco County Sheriff's deputy forgot his gun in the bathroom of a fast food restaurant and didn't notice for nearly 45 minutes. It was taken by a homeless man before he came back, and it took a whole day for the police department to track him down and make an arrest. A sheriff's deputy left his gun in a public bathroom. This is exactly why we do not want minimally trained staff volunteers carrying guns in our schools. Weeks like this is why we're here. This is why we wear red, and we represent hundreds of members of the chapter in Melbourne, Florida. We're here to help our communities find solutions. The 6 MOUs in the cities that you're reviewing today, we made those phone calls. We sent those emails, and we showed up at those meetings. Moms Demand Action is a nonpartisan grassroots movement of American mothers demanding new and stronger solutions to lax gun laws and loopholes that jeopardize the safety of our children and our families. We support the Second Amendment, and we know that it goes hand in hand with keeping guns away from dangerous people. We believe in common sense, evidence-based public safety measures. Since its inception after the tragedy at Sandy Hook Elementary School, Moms Demand Action has established a chapter in every single state in the United States. We are part of the largest gun violence prevention organization in the country with more than 4 million members. If you'd like to join us, all you have to do is text 64433 and put in the word ready. We believe that we can go beyond just changing laws and legislation. We believe we have the ability to change this culture, and we are here for you. Thank you.
Board wishes to thank this morning's speakers. Your willingness to speak to the board is appreciated. That moves us into the consent agenda. Dr. Blackburn.
There are 20 agenda items under this category, 2 with prior information.
Thank you, Dr. Blackburn. Does any board member wish to pull any item?
No, sir.
Seeing none, I will entertain a motion to accept the consent items.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Ms. Belford, seconded by Mr. Ziegler. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, please vote. Motion passes 5-0. We will now move on to the action agenda. Dr. Blackburn.
We have 4 items, and the first is item G30, finalist selection for superintendent.
Thank you, Dr. Blackburn. We have held the public comments portion of our meeting, and we had no one address the selection of superintendent finalists. And this time, I'm going to call for individual board comments. Please note that these comments should focus on the noted positives of each candidate. We'll go in roll call order. That would be Ms. Belford, myself, Ms. Deskovich, Mr. Susan, and then Mr. Ziegler. I think we're all been briefed on how the process is going to work. Does every board member feel comfortable how we're going to move forward? Okay, sorry, Ms. Belford, but you're kind of on the spot. So if you want to lead us in your discussion and how you want to move forward.
Sure. So in reviewing our applicants, I think that we have a few strong candidates that deserve to at least have the opportunity for an interview. Dr. Mullins, who of course is our in-house, our COO, certainly brings a lot of knowledge about the district and experience with Brevard County, lots of understanding there, and he certainly has played a leadership role here in the district for us, which is appreciated. Dr. Frank Rodriguez from Palm Beach County, I think also brings a significant amount of experience in a large district, and so I would recommend that we also invite him for an interview. And then Pete Bohatch from Lee County was another one, currently the Director of Student Services. Lots of focus in that area, and I think, Mr. Craig, you and I had an opportunity to see a presentation from the Lee County folks on some of his area of focus on restorative practices and social emotional supports in Lee County. So those were the 3 that stood out to me, but I would recommend that we consider bringing in for an interview.
Thank you, Ms. Belford. Excellent comments. I would have to agree definitely with Dr. Mullins. As a COO, he is, I think, evolved into just an amazing leader in the district. He has, I think one of the things that have stood out to me, and I don't know if all the board members know this, but basically, Mark has gone and done a day in the life of basically every position in this district, from a cafeteria worker to a bus driver to an actual fixing a bus or doing a 30-day inspection on a bus. And obviously he's been a teacher and throughout, so from a leadership standpoint, that stands out to me as someone who has put the time and effort into seeing every nook and cranny of this district. So I think he definitely deserves an interview. I would also agree with Dr. Rodriguez. I think he brings quite a good background from Palm Beach County, and his recommendations were very strong by a wide variety of people. Those were the 2 that stood out to me. Ms. Deskovich.
Okay, for me, we met and had a discussion as a board about what we were looking for, and we, in our next superintendent, and some of the things that we said is we wanted to look internal, that we felt like Dr. Blackburn had set a path for senior leadership to be well prepared to serve as our next superintendent. So our intention was to open locally. We opened it up to whomever wanted to apply, but we didn't advertise nationally. And when I look at this list, we have 4 internal candidates and maybe 1 or 2 other local individuals that have are still part of this community. For me, there is 1 candidate that stands out among those 4 as being the most prepared to serve as our next superintendent. And I believe this for several reasons. One, I've worked closely with him since I've been serving in this position on many issues. We've directed him to, evaluate our fleet, and he came back with a detailed report of where all our vehicles were. Believe it or not, we didn't know where all of our vehicles were, or that even some existed or didn't exist anymore. He tracked down every vehicle in the district and consolidated and evaluated and saved us some money and put us on a new system for our fleet tracking. We watched him work in the capacity during the hurricanes like nothing I've ever seen, running our shelters, keeping everybody in constant communication of the things that we needed to know when shelters were flooding and things were breaking down quickly during the hurricanes. He was managing all that and doing it extremely well. I have built a relationship with him, I feel like, of trust. I can count on him to handle issues when I go to him. These other individuals that you all have suggested, I have reviewed also, and their qualifications, they're definitely qualified to serve as our superintendent. But I come back to, I would have met them for an hour, possibly two, and couldn't possibly have the level of trust that I would have in our current COO, Dr. Mark Mullins. So he is my one and only vote that I believe stands above head and shoulders the rest of our candidates. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Deskovich. Excellent comments. Mr. Susan.
So I have three people here that I'd like to put up on the board. The first one is Dr. Mullins. Appreciate everything he did. I was actually a former teacher under him, and working with the principals and knowing him as the area superintendent and some of the issues that he had. There was a specific issue that I dealt with him over was my wife at the time was becoming assistant principal at O'Galley High School, and because of the laws, I had to move to Vieira High School. And I remember that as one of the toughest decisions that I ever made as a teacher, because I loved O'Galley High School, and I remember him telling me this is the right thing to do and everything else. So because of that, because not only the tough decisions that he's made, but the overall response of the individuals inside the community with each one of their experiences, from the chiefs to everybody that he's ever dealt with, I think he's a good candidate. I also think that Ms. Hargens from Louisville has an amazing, record here. If you look at our overall goals as a district, third grade, seventh grade, and where we're trying to target as a district, she actually fits in with she went from 31% to 64% for career readiness. She decreased spending in local school spending. She decreased the administrative budget and increased school spending by $93 million. She comes from Louisville, where she was the superintendent of 100,000 students. That was a huge opportunity and a base, if anybody's ever been to Louisville, for our target population. So she's one of my three. And then Gary Schifrin. I'd like to put Gary up. There's a lot of times when you look at an individual inside of the community and you say, hey, who is the person that holistically understands it, just like Dr. Mullins, and it would be Gary Schifrin. Not many people know he was the head of the Cape Coast Conference. He also oversees our ICOC. He also oversees BASA. He is literally the person that we look to every time in the community to lead one of our initiatives. And I think we would do our disservices as an individual board to say that we wouldn't include him if we said we were going to internal candidates. So those are my three.
Thank you, Mr. Susan. Mr. Ziegler.
So a little bit of a change up for me over my past. I have always been very adamant about national searches. I've been very adamant about the full detailed process of vetting out prospective candidates. However, at those point in times, I believe that we had the need for specific talent sets to get us in the right direction and to the right level. And so frequently that's what you do, is you look for those specifics, those traits in a leader, to accomplish the goals that, as a board, that you set forth. Mr. Craig, you, early in your career with us, you very appropriately stated the importance of capacity and succession. And Dr. Blackburn, you've done that extremely well, in my opinion, and I thank you for that. Succession is not just for that emergency when something happens as a crisis and you got to fill a position. Succession is also for the continuity in your organization when needed. And I believe this board has very clearly stated, and I'm assuming you all stand by that, that the priority at this point in time is continuity, vision, implementation of strategic plan, and continuing of building of relationships, both locally, internally, and at the state level, which is very important to us. I have looked at the candidates. I'll tell you again and again that hiring a superintendent is probably the most stressful thing that I've done, because if we get it wrong, who knows where we're going to go. Misty, I agree with your three choices. Dr. Mullins, clear standout from the point of well-groomed through succession planning. The other two, Rodriguez and Bohach, have large district experience. Interestingly, some of the others that have been superintendents have been extremely small districts, including one that is less than 1,000 students. I don't think that bodes well to what we have on our plate. Another thing this board has always been very supportive of is listening to our community, both internal and external. And I think that our communities have very clearly and very loudly spoke to us as to what they feel our best choice is for our next superintendent. I've actually been overwhelmed on the consistency of that message. And I think that this is one of those times that we can show our community we do listen and we do value what they have to tell us. We always value what they have to tell us, and we always listen. It's not always that we know which side of an argument or a conversation to listen to. We have a challenge before us in this district right now. Timing is very interesting. We have 3 board members up for re-election. While I'm fairly confident that 2 of us stand a very good chance of re-election to help with the continuity of this district, we can't be assured that that's going to happen. It's very possible that come the end of November, we will have 3 new board members up here and a new superintendent. I think at this point in time, the only thing that this board can do to ensure this district and this community of continuity in this district is to look at our internal candidate, Dr. Mullins, because it's a known quantifiable factor of what we're going to get if he leads this district. While again I said that I agree with Misty on the other 2 candidates, I would have to ask, while they do have strong qualifications, I can't say that their qualifications exceed Dr. Mullins. And I'm not sure what it is that we are going to look at from them that was going to wow us into saying they're a better choice. And that's what I've struggled with, because I do believe in the process. The question is, are we going through the process because we believe there's a better leader out there? We're going through the process to appease somebody, or I don't think it's necessarily appeasing this community. Are we going through the process for some specific reason? I can't figure out in my mind what more I would need at this from one of these other candidates to choose them, because all the right pieces are currently in place with Dr. Mullins. So I guess the question I have to the board members is, do you feel a necessity to go through the paces and to interview a few additional people. Is there something that you're hoping to see? Because I would like to know what that is that we're hoping to see. And if there's something valid, I can support going through the interview process. But I just want to make sure that we're not going through it for the wrong reason. I want to make sure we're not going through it and wasting time and delaying the inevitable. I think that could also be disrespectful to the candidates that we bring in if there is a true belief that somebody stands out head and shoulders above the rest and we can just make a decision and be done with it. So I would really like to know from the board members, is there something specific that we're hoping to see? Or is there, to justify going through with the whole
So
list
just
search?
so I understand, so you're one and only, you're similar to Ms. Deskovich. You have identified one candidate?
I've identified
That's kind of what we're
three.
doing right now, is just
I know.
identifying the candidates. I understand the discussion you want to have, and I completely support that. At this point, though, I want to make sure that we have the check marks where they need to be.
Sure.
Because this is a public record, and we need to know what your thoughts are as far as going forward, and then we can have that discussion. I think.
Okay, and my thoughts going forward are the same as Misty, three same choices as hers if we're going to go through the interview process. I just don't see that any one of the other two have higher qualifications. I'm not sure what I'd be looking for, and I'm hoping to get some guidance in your minds as to what you're hoping to see, because I always support everybody's thoughts and desires, but I'm not sure that there is any clarity on what we're hoping to see to extend the process.
Thank you. Before we open up that discussion, which is a critical discussion, I just want to make sure that our Bill and John, you're got the same as I do. Number 8, Dr. Mullins has 5 check marks. Mr. Schifrin, number 7, has 1. Dr. Rodriguez has 3. Dr. Bohatch has 2. And then, I'm sorry, Dr. Hargens, number 10, has 1. Is that what you see as well? Okay. Now, the discussion that you eloquently put forward and is necessary is, how does the board want to proceed? And I'll let board members weigh in at this point. This is a discussion we have to have. Obviously, we have to have it in public. So please, let's have that discussion so we can make sure that we are all on the same page and everybody feels comfortable going forward. So I don't know where we're going to start. Misty?
I'm happy to comment. So I can't disagree with anything that has been said with regard to candidates. The thing that I will say, I cringe at the idea of making a decision without all the information. And so I feel, and it's the same comment that I made in the workshop when we initiated this discussion, that I owe it, and we owe it really, to our community to make sure that we are evaluating the options. And it very well may be that we end up supporting Dr. Mullins, but I feel like we are actually doing Dr. Mullins a disservice by not ensuring that we have evaluated our options thoroughly and then giving him the opportunity to be the top choice. At the same time, I feel like we would be doing our community a disservice if we didn't look at those other candidates that are out there. And I'm not looking for anything specific. I just want to know that we're deciding on the best person to serve our community.
Mr. Susan?
I echo Ms. Belford's comments in the fact that the legitimacy as far as a district, along with the candidate, are hinged upon the process that we select them by. So by selecting somebody immediately and not going through the process after we just went through town halls and all the other, on a very heavy topic, and learned a lot of different things that we didn't learn before, I think that this is part of the process that we owe our people. And I think that in the end, whoever we select will have the highest legitimacy along with the district based upon us going through the process of what we set forth to do.
Tina?
I respect the process. However, I don't want to waste time saying what I've already said, but if we don't know what we're looking for in these other candidates, we've got some pretty lengthy application packages on them. I was surprised between that and some Google searches how good of a feel I felt like I could get for some of these candidates. Spending the money and the time to bring them here when 5 of us have all agreed on one candidate. I believe in process, but I also believe in not wasting time and money. So I don't want to be so bold to make a motion right this minute, but I could if my board would be willing to forego the, gosh, it's hard doing these meetings in the public. If Misty, you seem to be the one that's most concerned about the process. Your first words that were, it wasn't uncomfortable. I think it was even a stronger word. That gives me pause because I don't want to rob you of the process. I want you to feel confident and strong about who we select.
Well, and I appreciate that, Ms. Duskovich. I do. I feel like it's important that, and we had this conversation before prior to our discussion and how we move forward. I reached out to all of my Area 1 or District 1 principals. I reached out to all of our cabinet members. I got input from them. Did they feel like we should look internal? Did they feel like we should open it up to external? There was a lot of consensus there. But the same feedback that I got was, how do you make a decision if you don't know what your options are? And so I just feel like, looking and your time and money comment, I absolutely support as well. But I think we agreed in the previous meeting, and our folks from FSBA can correct me if I am incorrect in recalling this conversation. But I think we agreed that it would take 3 votes to bring someone in for an interview. So we're looking at 2 interviews, unless somebody's going to change their votes on who they want to bring in. Right now, we only have 2 that have 3 votes. Expense to bring them in is going to be minimal. And so I feel like we at least owe it to evaluating and truly understanding what both of them have to offer so that we can make a decision that's in the best interest of the district.
Just for clarification, while we did discuss that, it's still the board's prerogative. We could bring in everyone who got a single check mark or whatever you want to call it, because there is no ranking, obviously, of any of these candidates. So it's really up to the board's desire, and eventually it's going to take a motion by somebody to figure out who we're going to bring. So, and that motion can't be from me. So it's going to have to be one of you 4. That's kind of how the whole parliamentary process works. So we need somebody to bring the motion forward so that we can continue forward. And certainly we can continue having discussion. I'm just reminding you of the parliamentary procedure that we do need to follow in order to make sure that we bring in whoever we're going to bring in for an interview. So still happy to have more discussion. From a personal standpoint, I see Misty. I understand your side or your viewpoint, the lens you're viewing it through, very distinctly, and it's probably why I had one other person in there. I also see Tina's lens and Andy's lens pretty clearly as well, because as Mr. Ziegler pointed out, I was a early proponent of capacity building for whoever was in the organization that, and hopefully we have multiple people that will become superintendents from across our cabinet and inside of our school system eventually someday. So I think there is a lot of capacity there. So I see it from both sides, but we're going to have somebody either have some more discussion or bring a motion forward on how many people we're going to bring, what your desires are, whether you want to bring 2 people in. 3 people would be somebody who got 2 votes, and then there's 1 each that have 1 vote.
If I may.
Yes.
Oh, go ahead, Andy. Go.
Go ahead, Andy.
I'm just going to again reiterate that if we believe in where we need to go in our continuity and consistency in this district, I only see one way that we can assure our internal and external communities that that is done. And I believe that you are all right, and that is very, very important at this point in time. We don't need another listening and learning tool. We don't need another reorganization. We don't need to rebuild relationships. We need to continue and build and grow from where we are without starting over. And I would like to guarantee, I'd like to assure my community, because our re-elections are not guaranteed, and so we can't assure them that we are going to be able to continue directing that leadership. I could make a decision right now, to be honest with you. But I want to make sure that we send a clear, unified message on who we want as a leader. And if I feel comfortable enough with that, I'd be willing to make a motion, but I don't want to fall short at this point in time. So I'm clearly telling you that I know where we need to go and I know how we need to get there, and I believe we've all clearly articulated that. Question is, should we make that decision right now?
You got something to say?
The true secret to Brevard is Brevard. Like the people that are inside this town, inside this county, and when you look back at when we chose Dr. Bingley, and he was up against Dr. Blackburn at the time, not this Dr. Blackburn, but the other Dr. Blackburn, we chose to go with Bingley. The true secret, and if you watched how Dr. Blackburn came here and listened to people and worked through our county, was he took what we had and made it better. And I think that that's the true secret to Brevard, in the fact that Dr. Blackburn was very successful in tapping what we had here. And I am all about that. I just truly believe that for the legitimacy of this district, if you took every time there was a 5-0 strong vote on something and said, let's just go with that without community input, there would be a lot of decisions that were made that weren't very good. So that's why I believe in the process and moving forward with having candidates come in.
I don't want a fractured vote, but I'm going to go out there and be bold to save us time and money, which I think that some of us are a little more cautious, and I respect that. I'm sorry, Ms. Belford. I'm going to make the motion that we move forward with selecting Dr. Mark Mullins as our next superintendent, with whatever that entails, John, as far as your
Second.
negotiating.
Okay, I have a motion from Ms. Deskovich to appoint or to enter into contract negotiations with Dr. Mark Mullins as the next superintendent. I have Ms. Enball. Did that come across properly?
Yes, that was
I summarized that? Okay. And it's seconded by Mr. Ziegler. Is there any discussion? No discussion. All right, hearing, do you have that typed in? No. Okay, we will do a voice vote, unless you need to stand, which is another option under parliamentary procedure, but we won't do that. So all in favor of the motion as stated, please say aye. Aye. Opposed?
Nay.
Nay.
So the motion passes 3-2.
May I make a comment?
Yes.
Because I think this is important to say very much out loud, and that is that my vote was in no way, shape, or form against Dr. Mullins. I will support the decision of the board and support him as a leader, and I don't want there to be any question there. My only reason for the nay vote is because I do believe in the process. And so I don't want Dr. Mullins to go into this feeling like he doesn't have full support of the board, because I don't think that is the case at all. It's just a process issue for me.
Okay.
Nope.
Then congratulations to Dr. Mark Mullins as the new superintendent. And I would be remiss to not thank Dr. Blackburn for his tutelage and his mentorship of his entire cabinet, because you have some incredible people there. And I know that Dr. Mullins and you have worked closely together and I'm looking forward to you in having a great turnover period that I know you and I have discussed, whoever it might be, that you would be spending the time to do a turnover, something you didn't have the opportunity to have. So to me, that's really, really important to have that turnover time. So thank you, Dr. Blackburn, for the time you've invested in mentoring your cabinet. Okay, let's see where we're at now. Dr. Blackburn, we are at number 31, I believe.
Thank you, Mr. Craig, members of the board. I didn't want to cloud or disrupt the conversation, but you do realize Dr. Mullins is a Seminole, right? If that makes a difference.
Does that mean they have to change the ceiling tile?
He has his from, he'll carry it down.
It may mean a host of different things, but.
Are you going to leave little presents for him throughout the
I will,
building?
little gator pieces, yes.
Excellent.
Congratulations, Dr. Mullins. I mean that sincerely as a friend and a fellow educator. Congratulations. Next item is G31 on department school initiated agreements.
What are the wishes of the board?
Move to approve.
Second.
Moved by Mr. Susan, seconded by Ms. Belford. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, please vote. Motion passes 5-0. Dr. Blackburn.
Item G32 is on purchasing solicitations.
What are the wishes of the board?
Move to approve.
Second.
Moved by Mr. Susan, seconded by Ms. Belford. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, please vote.
There it is.
It needs more coffee. No, the computer.
And the motion passes 5-0. Dr. Blackburn.
The last item is G33 on the Florida Educational Equity Act annual update.
What are the wishes of the board?
Move to approve.
Second.
Moved again by Mr. Susan, seconded again by Ms. Belford. Is there any discussion?
Yes.
Mr. Ziegler.
This is something we do annually, and I just wanted to make a comment that this is probably the most difficult thing that any school district has to do is try to comply with these equity statutes. It's virtually next to impossible to do. I believe Brevard works extremely hard to do it, to get to where we are. I do take some issue, and we've had conversations over the years, in the difference between equal opportunity, especially in Title IX, as opposed to equal participation. We all believe in equal opportunity, but unfortunately, the way that the courts have ruled on these things in the past is equal participation. Doesn't make any sense, but I would like to compliment staff and schools in all areas for trying to equal out the participation as best as possible that they can. That is really, really difficult to do, and I know that's a very strong focus in Brevard for choice and equity. So I just wanted to make that comment, 'cause a lot of people, I don't want to just glaze over something that's just so important and that we do so well. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any other discussion? Hearing none, please vote. Motion passes 5-0. We are now at the information agenda, which includes items for board review and may be brought back for action at a subsequent meeting. No action will be taken on these items this morning. Dr. Blackburn.
There are 3 items under the information category.
Does any member wish to discuss any of these 3 items? No? Yes, Ms. Belford.
Just really kind of a quick comment, and I know Dr. Theddy is not with us today, but her staff has been an integral part of this process as well. You know, we were tasked through the Marjorie Stoneman Douglas legislation to develop a mental health plan for our district, utilizing the funds that were provided to us through the legislative process last year. And Dr. Thetty and her team have worked incredibly hard to come up with a plan for us to be able to move forward and address these issues. As we see so often, there's never quite enough funding for us to do exactly what it is that we want to do, but I do feel that she and her team have put together a plan to begin to address some of those really incredibly critical issues in our district, and I just want to say thanks to them for all of their hard work on that.
I would second that. Thank you very much for bringing that up. Anybody else have any discussion points?
I think this is one of the most, just like Andy was saying
Yeah.
about the our equity plan, this right here, the discipline policy, the mental health plan, this is it. This is what moves our district, and she did a phenomenal job on this. As usual with Dr. Thetty, she always knocks it out of the park. It's great.
If I may.
Mr. Ziegler.
Since we are touching upon the discipline plan, which has been so well worked on by Student Services, and because it has actually been a topic of conversation in the community because of some discipline theories implemented in other school districts, and Misty, you can speak to this too, because I know you were very involved in the evolution of our discipline plan. Was something that was initially crafted by staff and then very much modified and made unique by our community. Tremendous participation through regular meetings with principals and teachers and parents and community leaders, repetitively meeting and going over in minute detail how this would work and what it would look like. And I just want to assure this community, this is a Brevard community discipline plan. This is not anybody else's. This does not mirror anybody else's. This was not created off of anybody else's. This was created by our community. And it's also monitored and evaluated to make sure that it is flowing appropriately. And I know that Dr. Thetty and her team constantly think through it, and that if need be, they will make recommendations to make it more efficient if need be, and we also welcome any input from the community if they see any inconsistencies or poor application of this discipline plan. But I'm very proud of the transparency that this district went through creating that plan, and I want to assure the community this is very much a Brevard product.
Thank you for those comments, Mr. Ziegler. Very appropriate. Any other board member wish to discuss anything? Okay. We are now at board member reports and discussion points section. We have one discussion point that was advertised. It's the pharmacy RFP. Mr. Susan.
So I think I'm in agreement with a lot of the other school board members. We pushed the RFP to go out to bid, and there was a bunch of things that occurred while we were going out to bid, and I think that they need direction at this point, whether they should hold off on going out to bid again, or if they should wait until next year and evaluate the entire holistic health program and put that out to bid. I see benefits in both sides of it. I will tell you that the two biggest carriers that we had were kicked off for various reasons. One was that Cigna supposedly didn't bring didn't have the data on their CD, and I think, Mr. Ziegler, you were pointing to an MOU of some sort, or an NDA of some sort that the other group didn't. So I asked to put this on so that we could discuss it and workshop it and give them a direction as to what we as a board think that we should do in the overall plan for our healthcare.
Thank you, Mr. Susan. Any, Mr. Ziegler?
So just so that, and I think the board all knows, but for the public who's listening to the conversation, we are self-insured, both for our healthcare and for our pharmacy. And in order to, based on the amount of spend we have in that area, benefits is any organization's second biggest expense. We constantly scrutinize how we can be more efficient, how we could save money, how we could do more for our employees without the expense being that of the taxpayer. And so we have had a lot of successes in the past. We've reduced our projected expenses and lessened the burden out of our employees' pocket, and it's been a win-win across the board. The industry standard has always been to go out on bid every 3 years. However, referring to a term that John, you like to use as best practices, and talking to people in the industry, they suggest being a little more aggressive every 2 years. We're at the 3-year point on the pharmacy. And the bid package that was sent out per direction of the board had been worked on for quite a while. It wasn't just dusted off the shelf and sent out. Mark Langdorf has been working on that for a while, and it was based on him doing a lot of legwork, a lot of research, and trying to figure out where we can glean a lot of savings and a lot of improvements to what we do, which we happen to be doing very well. And no disrespect to Cigna. Cigna has been serving us extremely well and taking good care of us, although I think healthcare is one of those things that as a society, we just don't shop it. We just blindly follow our doctor's orders and do what we're supposed to do. And the same is when shopping for insurance. It's very complicated. So we need to be more astute consumers of those products and services, and this board has been very supportive of looking at that. I was dismayed in that what I thought was our 2 most promising bidders, NSBARX and Cigna, based on the rules of bidding, purchasing. Well, actually, the NSBARX did not submit a bid because the non-disclosure was not signed. And while, John, you properly pointed out that may not be necessary based on the language in our bid contracts, I do believe that is a prerogative of a vendor, and I don't think it needs to be dismissed as a valid thing to reply to. I don't know exactly what the timing is and exactly why it didn't happen in time for them to submit. And on the case of Cigna, it's very odd that they submitted, I believe, at least one, if not multiple discs with their data that were blank. Cigna's not new at this game. I got to admit, they dot their I's and cross their T's very well before they submit a bid package. So my concern right now is severalfold, because staff has done an exceptionally good job of resolving one of this board's biggest pet peeves over the years, and that's bringing us items with our backs against the wall where we don't have time to think or consider. We have to make a decision right there on the spot. That hasn't happened in a long time, thanks to Dr. Blackburn and staff. However, with the results of this bid, I'm not sure we have time to go out on another bid and be able to vet it and award it in time for open enrollment, although I'm not necessarily sure. I'd have to ask whether it's not really plan design that somebody chooses like it is with the healthcare. So I'm not sure if the timing has to be such that it has to be in place before open enrollment, because they don't specifically choose their PBM. Employees don't choose their PBM in open enrollment. So I don't know that it's necessary to be prior to open enrollment as opposed to prior to implementation for the next year, which begins January 1st. My other concern is, and while Cigna has been very gracious to offer us incentive to renew, I have some questions about what that renewal looks like, because I believe, Ms. Zurcher, that is staff's recommendation at this point in time. So I have some questions about what that looks like. And I'm also curious if we're allowed to do that for a vendor that didn't pass muster at the bid process. I know that we could, if everybody had submitted their bids, we could say we're not awarding and we're just renewing. But I don't know the fact that their data wasn't complete, if that throws a monkey wrench in the works. Can you first answer that question? Can we still award even though renew, even though the renewal company didn't succeed on or pass muster as a qualifier in the bid?
As the way purchasing explained it to the selection committee, yes, we can. It's 2 separate items. There was the RFP where they could have given a second proposal, but we still have two options, two one-year renewal options under the current. And according to Mr. Hensman in purchasing, our choices were select from a respondent or continue with Cigna.
Okay, then the next question I have is, and I don't want to hold anybody to a specific number, so I know this is a ballpark. I believe part of that renewal was going to offer something or just under $1 million of savings somehow. Where is that going to be realized? Is that going to be realized in per employee per month? Is that going to be realized in increased pharmacy rebates? What is the specific so that it can be measured as promised?
I don't have that information in front of me right now. However, it is the same information I presented to the board at the March retreat.
I understand it, but I don't believe the details of where that comes from was
They weren't.
shared. At least I don't recall that. If any of the board members do, they can. So that's actually, I think it's important. Personally, I think that from my research and staff's research, we've learned that while we're doing great in pharmacy rebates, I believe last year we reaped about $2.3 million in pharmacy rebates. It's been implied that some of those rebates are being left on the table, and that we can improve there. So I don't know if it's rebates that they believe they can improve or administrative costs. I'm not really sure what we're looking at. So while I respect staff's recommendation, I'd like to know that if we do that we have a measurable, definitive outcome, because some of these things get very confusing and I hate to say foggy, but insurance is extremely complicated. And I appreciate, and as a CFO, I'm very impressed with your knowledge and your digging in
Thank you.
the way you do. But I think we need some more clarification, and so the board can decide what they want to do.
At the time we bring it back to the board, we will bring all the details.
Ms. Sanval, have you had an opportunity to look at this contract and get into the contract law side?
I have. Ms. Zerker is correct. I've actually worked with purchasing on that as well. So with respect to your question as to whether or not they're two separate, the solicitation is separate from the renewal. We do have that option to renew, and we can negotiate during that renewal term as well.
Okay.
So
Mr. Susan?
renewal is for another 3-year plan?
No, we have two one-year renewals
And then-
remaining.
Good. And then, Ms. Zerker, if you can walk me through that CD process, how they showed up with a CD that didn't work, because, I mean, like you, I'm thinking they've done this 1,000 times a year. How is it that they screwed up here?
It was a clerical mistake on their office. Every one of the packets they turned in had a disc for their pricing, and every one of them were blank.
How many were blank?
Every one of them, there were 10,
I
8
think
to
it was a
10,
required 10
Yeah.
submission. Yeah.
and every one was blank.
And Mr. Susan, I will say that at least from knowledge of the government contracting side, while it doesn't happen a lot, it's not uncommon. Teams, the teams, the bid proposal teams, I mean, they have war rooms where they put together their bids. And there is a proposal manager who is in charge of all that, and sometimes it falls through the cracks.
Did they offer to bring another set of CDs? Did they offer to?
They're not allowed to under the RFP process. The deadline had already completed.
Was there hard copies submitted?
No.
So they didn't get us the information, period.
Correct.
I'm sorry, Mr. Craig. I have worked in major multi-billion-dollar proposals in those war rooms, in those centers, and you check, you double check, you send backups, your proposal boss checks, something just.
So did we send the CDs to IT to
On
make
that
sure
same-
that there was something that we didn't miss, that our computers might not have been picking them up or anything like that?
They admitted they did not send us complete data.
I think they didn't.
So do we have those CDs currently?
I cannot say that they would be in purchasing if we do.
Could we have purchasing bring those to Russell Cheatham to make sure that there's no data sitting on them?
I will ask them to do that.
Perfect.
If I may, when we had discussions, I believe the discs were not even formatted.
Okay.
when I spoke to purchasing, and we are prohibited by statute to accept things after the bid closing. So that they
Right.
did say, hey, it was a mistake, we needed to, can you give them now? And the answer is no, because under the statutes, we can't accept anything once it's closed.
My
So
concern-
Can I just interject?
Yes.
For all practical purposes, those doors are closed
Right.
on that company. I mean, we can ask Russell to go look at thumb drives and CD-ROMs and all that kind of good stuff, but the door is closed.
Well, that's not our responsibility.
If I may.
It's, the format is listed in the solicitation and how it's supposed to arrive to the decision team, so.
If I may inject some technical experience that I've had multiple times over the years. And it started all the way back with floppy disks, continued with CDs and DVDs. Floppy disk, my God, you're old. Yes, I'm old. Been doing this for a long time. It is highly probable, and I've seen this multiple times, that when these devices are written to, if the head is out of alignment, it's possible that the original writer of that information may be the only one to be able to read it, because the standard alignment of drives doesn't align to recognize anything on a disk. I've seen it before. So I agree with Mr. Susan, is to have our IT department look at it, and although that is a challenging thing to do because you can't really realign ahead of a device when because you don't know where the other one was out of a line. Something's just odd here. And I just find it hard to believe that they didn't double check those disks. And it's possible they checked them in the drive that they were written on, and the drive somehow was out of alignment. I'd like to just dig a little bit more.
Let me be perfectly clear here. I'm not saying that Cigna should be allowed to be back in based upon the data that would be on those disks. Just for the thoroughness and process of what we have as far as here, I would like to have those CDs brought over to Russell Cheatham and then just scan to make sure that there wasn't something that we missed, that's all. I would move forward with just even the other one not being able to bid, to not going out to bid for an RFP at this point. But there's something there that I'm not seeing. The other piece that I received was, I made a data request back on December 17th, or roughly the middle of December, for information onto our plan. Cigna sent it in 4 days, and I didn't get it until April. So I've got to dig down and find out exactly what happened there. But there's some things that are inside there that I would ask the board for just relevance and process, if we could send those CDs over to Russell to see if we just missed something, whether it's your alignment or anything. There's nothing nefarious about it. I'm not asking to open up the bid again or to do any of that stuff. I just think that would behoove us to do.
Okay.
Does Ms. Deskovich, do you have any issue with that? I will stand in complete opposition to that. I think that is not anywhere near our normal process. It is not the duty of our ET department to go and look at a vendor's, mistake. It's just not. It's not how government contracting works. But if that's what the wishes of the board are, then I will stand in opposition to that. But if you all want to keep going with that, that's fine.
Are those wishes going to be made explicit? Because I don't agree to assign staff to do that work either. So is the board going to give me some kind of directive?
I can make my original motion again.
What was your original motion?
Original motion was to have the CDs that were brought over by Cigna carried over, handed directly to Russell Cheatham, so that he could look at to make sure that there's no data on them. That's easy.
Okay, was that your motion, or are you just explaining?
He
it?
wanted
'Cause I did-
explanation. He wanted explanation
No,
and
but you need to
direction.
make a motion then.
Okay, so I make a motion to have the Cigna CDs brought over from purchasing to Russell Cheatham to make sure that there's no data on them. That's it.
If you need a motion, I'll second that, but the reason I'm interested in it is just because it just seems so odd.
Sorry, we have a motion and a second,
second.
and now we can have discussion. Thank you.
I would feel more comfortable about the renewal if I knew that there was more of a technical glitch, as opposed to just nothing, flat out nothing on the disk. If I don't want to go any further and say any more than that.
Okay, so is there any other discussion? Then I'll call the question. All in favor of Mr. Susan's motion to have purchasing walk the CDs to DET for them to look for data. Ms. Enval, did I state that correctly? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Aye. Aye. Motion passes 4-1. Okay, and what is our next, is there anything else on that issue?
Nope.
Okay. Is there any, I'm sorry, does any board member have any reports? Mr. Ziegler?
No.
Anything? Ms. Belford?
Oh, I got one.
Ms. Deskovich?
I met with the Values Adjustment Board again. It was a waste of time again, and if anybody would like to take my position on that. Apparently, I can't even not show up because a member of the school board has to be present for them to have a quorum. So anybody that would like to serve on that board, it's available.
Ms. Enval, as our board attorney, can you please get with the county attorney and discuss that position
Yes.
and the history of it?
Yes.
And what the remedy might be,
Yes,
so that
I
we're
will do
not
that.
wasting each other's time. Thank
Yes.
you.
I could speak briefly to that.
That's fine. Let's just have Ms. Enval take care of it.
It's by statute. It's by statute.
Mr. Susan, do you have anything?
No, I'm good.
Dr. Blackburn, you're going to provide us with some results on a recent poll.
I will, Mr. Craig and members of the board. The poll is pretty self-explanatory, but it's part of a much bigger conversation and a huge conversation, and that is whether or not to allow the voters of Brevard County to decide in November that the school district is in need of additional resources for two primary reasons, and that is continuity of security and salary increases for our employees. After this meeting, we will go to a budget workshop where the punchline is we don't have enough. That is the punchline, right? No matter how you slice it. And I understand that increased taxation, especially in this region of the world, is probably one of the most unpopular conversations to have. But our school district needs it. The only other, we've made tremendous effort and successful effort over the last 2 consecutive years to tighten our own belts, to restructure debt, to reallocate resources. Annually, we're able to come up with $3+ million in belt tightening and in savings. That's not nearly enough to keep pace with inflation as far as compensation is concerned. Additionally, with compensation, there's a compensation study that we launched about a year ago, and it's taken some time to get to the meat of the disparities that exist in this district. But a complete comp study, again, punchline, will show salary disparities across the system. Additional punchline, we don't have the dollars to meet the demands of what the comp study is going to show. We've gotten resources from our State Department for SROs this year. I don't believe anything in our current legislation calls for that dollar amount to be reoccurring, right? And I believe we still want to secure our schools regardless of what we do or do not get from Tallahassee. The poll was conducted after a workshop where we discussed it. 881 likely voters were contacted. I will tell you, in addition, and to those of you who are not familiar with the political process, I mean, the sampling is similar to what goes on in the political world. But in addition to the number, there was an intentional effort to reach landline people, right, in this, because we know, I mean, those persons home during the day actually answering a landline, there's some stereotypical assumptions we can make about how they vote, right? And that assumption is that they're probably, if they're home during the daytime answering a landline, there are some assumptions in Florida that they're probably a tax increase, right? And so to have that population of people return a 50% in support of, I think that's pretty significant. And again, it doesn't mean that the superintendent, even though I do, or the board actually supports or will rally or will quote-unquote campaign or encourage people to vote this way. It would simply be giving we the people their opportunity to decide what their school district receives. So, I mean, I can go on and on and on from a political, philosophical standpoint, but you have the information there. And we have the opportunity to bring back a recommendation to the board at the 28th board meeting, where there would be exact language that we could ask the board to allow us to put on the ballot and then have the people of Brevard decide. I should add to this that one of the performance metrics or KPIs that our union members have given us to live up to, that we haven't lived up to in the last 2 years, is to be consistent, to be in the ballpark of what surrounding districts are doing with salary increases. Rumor tells me that Orange County is either about to or have already approved a 4% increase. They have this millage component in that district, along with a few other surrounding districts. I just don't see our ability to keep pace with security, keep pace with continued salary increases without either additional funding or doing something drastic to our current employees, like layoffs. Like we can tighten our belts to find $1 million here, $3 million there, but to come up with $13 million annually for a 3% raise, like I just don't see that in our future without some introduction of resources.
Thank you, Dr. Blackburn. Does any board member have any comment? Okay. I'm sure we'll have more discussion this afternoon at our budget workshop. Before we adjourn, I just want to remind everybody of our timeline going forward with Dr. Mullins. Things have changed a bit, obviously, now that we have a identified superintendent or superintendent in waiting, whatever that is called. Ms. Enval is our board attorney and will be representing the five of us as to what we are looking for in a contract pursuant to what we talked about at the last discussion regarding superintendent's evaluation and contract. I do request that you provide Ms. Enval with suggestions and requirements that you want to see in the contract. That means you need to get into today's contract and figure out what is either working well or what needs to be added in order to make sure that your wishes are reflected in that contract. Ms. Enval, is there a time frame that you would like to have regarding negotiations, realizing that we are still shooting for a July 10th vote on approval? We do have a June 28th advertised meeting that we were going to have a recommendation for a superintendent at that time. We can still utilize that day to look at specific contract language if required. So if you could back that up, and you don't need to tell me right this minute, but if you could send out an email to individual members and perhaps set up individual times with each member to sit down and have a one-on-one, face-to-face regarding the contract, I think that will be helpful for all of us. Ms. Belford, yes?
Quick question, looking at our previously proposed timeline. We have Monday, June 18th, which is set aside for wrapping up evaluations, and then we had the 21st and 22nd set aside for interviews. Are we removing those time commitments on those days, or?
So the 18th, I think we had still set aside to finish Ms. Enval's evaluation, so I'd like to keep that on there, if everyone's still good with that. The 21st and 22nd, I don't think are going to be applicable And certainly, I don't think having a reception or anything before we have an approved contract is probably a good idea, probably not a good precedent. So my recommendation would be that we do not have any, we don't have anything at that time. Those might be the days that Ms. Enball can sit down with individual board members and discuss the contract at length so that we can make sure that we've got all the pieces in there that we have discussed previously.
And then I have one more clarifying question,
Okay.
Mr. Craig. I apologize. You mentioned a scheduled meeting on June 28th, and I think that we discussed that on our preliminary timeline, but I'm not showing anything on our calendar.
I think we had that.
I have a special school board meeting on mine.
It was
You
a
do?
special meeting.
Yeah, special meeting. It's at 9 a.m. on 28th.
Yep.
Yeah, I have it at 9:30 a.m.
Okay.
9, yes. 9 a.m. to 9:30. It was all of a half hour.
Misty. He's got something for you. I've got something too that I want to say.
Okay, go ahead, Mr. Susan.
Can you hand that to Misty? Ms. Zerker, if you can, during our workshop, you have the discretionary funding here. If you could do a piece on breaking down exactly what we get from the millage between the 3 different accounts that we get from the county at our budget workshop. It's real easy. You have the discretionary millage, which is like 0.7, whatever that is, and then we have the other millage that we have. If you can just go through that with it, because I think there's going to need to be some clarity there. Thank you, Ms. Zerker. Okay. Mr. Craig, I'd like to make a motion to revote for Mr. Mullins, if that's a possibility.
Doctor?
Dr. Mullins, sorry.
Can you please state your motion, Mr. Susan?
I'd like to make a motion to revote for Dr. Mullins for superintendent.
Point of order. You voted.
Yeah, point of order.
Yep.
Point of order, you were on the, it can, we can, I understand your point, but it needs to be, a motion need to be made by somebody that voted for.
Correct. So it needs to be.
I will support you in that request and I will make the motion to select Dr. Mullins as superintendent. of
Motion by
Brevard.
Mr. Ziegler to select Dr. Mullins as the, Mark
Second.
Mullins as the superintendent of Brevard Public Schools, seconded by Ms. Deskovich. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, the motion passes 5-0. Again, congratulations, Dr. Mullins. I love parliamentary procedure. Thank you, Mr. Ziegler, Doctor.
Dr. Ziegler?
All right, is there any other motion, or any other business to come before the board?
Very good at it.
Hearing none, the meeting is adjourned.